Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Howdy y'all, Red O'Loughlin here. Today on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, I have an amazing author, an amazing guest. She has written a couple books. She is an expert on body image, advocate for self-esteem, particularly with children. She has an interesting background, which you'll find out today, but it all centers around truth and the importance of truth in our lives. So with that, I'm going to welcome Marci Warhaft. Sorry about that, Marci. Please join me up here on the stage.
Hello, thanks for having me.
And you're from Canada, right?
I am in, the Great White North. It is freezing.
And you are recognized for several years as one of the top 100 influencers and also in the top 100 in healthy bodies or body health or whatever. Anyway, so you have a big reputation outside of your author career. And when I'm doing my research on you, there's a lot in your journey over your life, from your younger time in your family to getting married to having some interesting life stories. And so why don't we start with the early Marci? What happened early in life that kind of set you up for at least the downward slide, and then we'll talk about the upward climb.
Well, that's the thing. The thing is that I was set up for greatness, and I don't mean that as like me being great, but just having a really secure and happy life. That's what's so strange about my story, I guess, is that I started off as this little girl who felt she could do anything and be anything, and I was loved and supported. And despite the fact that my parents divorced when I was young and my father was out of the picture, my mother was spectacular. My older brother was spectacular. And I felt that I was encouraged to be whoever I wanted to be. And that, I thought that would be my future. I thought I was very outspoken and I was a little performer and sang and danced, and the world was mine to explore. And then life said, oh, wait 1 second, not so fast. And that's when reality set in. And, my parents' divorce was challenging because my father didn't help out and my mother was left to take care of 3 kids on her own, but that was okay. I don't mind a little struggle. My brother passed away when I was 17 and he was 21, and he was I refer to him as, he was my security to wear, my armor to wear out in the world. And I lost him. And that set me off. That was really the turning point for me, was at 17 years old, when you should feel invincible. My older brother got sick and he was everything to me. And I thought, oh my God, the world suddenly felt very scary. So that was one part of it. But then the other part of it was I felt that it should have been me instead of him. I felt the world needed him more than me. And at 17 years old, when you go into the rest of your life feeling that you're not worthy of being here, it leaves you vulnerable to other things that life throws at you, and then people and situations that may not have your best intentions, and you don't have the self-esteem to be strong enough to make the right choices and go in the right directions. And that set me from this little girl who thought she could be anything to a woman who felt she deserved nothing. And that sort of started it all.
It's interesting, the term self-esteem. I was in my learning part of my life very, very late. I was learning how to do things after my retirement. And I was there, and one of the guys, really outgoing and very knowledgeable. And after he had come down off the stage, one of the people who was sponsoring the event was talking with a couple other people. And I kind of walked up, and they said, he would really be great if he had self-esteem. And I really didn't understand at the time, because he had a pretty good, awareness of whatever. But apparently there was something that they knew that I didn't, that was going to hold him back. So I think that's one of those things that we don't even consider a lot of times when we look at ourselves internally and we start projecting ourselves. That kind of stops us in our tracks. And so you had I guess, a change there with your brother's death. You got married and things started, I'm not going to say unraveling, but let's just say started going in a downward direction that caused you to write this book, A Soccer Mom's Memoir of Lies, Loss, and Lap Dances, which is a very interesting title for a book. So how did the life turn into a book?
Oh, I mean, it's funny because there were so many steps before that. That's the crazy thing too. I look at my life. I got married at 24, and before I got married, there had been so much, like one thing after another, crazy things that had happened. And then you get to a point. I when I was getting married, and I wasn't even really the marriage type. Like I wasn't a girl who thought, oh, I looked at wedding things, and I wasn't. But I met somebody who was great, and I think I thought maybe this will make my life normal. Like maybe doing what normal people do will make my life normal. But I forgot who I am. And again, life's like, what? No. So at that point, my marriage was great at first. And then again, we had more trauma. I mean, I ended up in the hospital with a bizarre illness that put me there for 2 months, and I was given a 25% chance of survival and had to fight through that. So my challenges were both emotional and physical. And it was just one thing after another after another. And then when I got out of the hospital many years ago, that's when, for some reason, my marriage changed and my relationship changed. And he just basically wanted to open it up, and it changed kind of on that level, the intimacy level, and wanted to kind of put me out there. And um, it had come up before in our marriage, but I wasn't into it. I still wasn't. But at that point, I had what a therapist coined the phrase traumatic overload. I had just been through too much. I had lost my family. I had a sibling left. I had my sister, and we were estranged at the time. I had no cousins. My mother had died. Like, I was just me. And I had two babies at the time, and a husband who wasn't being super supportive. And I let myself be manipulated and sort of thrown into a life that I hadn't expected. And that's where the self-esteem comes in, because, when I was 17, like I said, when my brother died, I felt like I wasn't worthy of taking up space in this world that should have been his. And so I never felt good enough. And then here I am in this situation where I almost died. And then my partner wasn't making me feel like I was good enough. And I tried desperately to be the best mom that I could. But again, I didn't have anyone around. I lost my mother and my brother, who were the people who, when I was younger, encouraged me and made me feel like I could do anything. I had nobody to do that. So I had to try to find other ways to feel like I was something. And as a woman, and as a younger woman, and I was always very confident in my sexuality, and I liked to dance, and that was sort of where I felt most comfortable. I would get attention that way. And I was having a partner who was pushing me towards really owning not owning my sexuality, but sharing my sexuality. And I took a turn, and on one hand, I was trying to be the best mother I could possibly be, because I had the best mother and I wanted my kids to feel loved every second, but then trying to find my self-worth through my body. And when my brother died, I need to say I developed an eating disorder. And that was sort of my way of coping, which you don't cope with it. So again, my whole life was sort of focused on how I looked. And that was sort of, I felt, well, if I couldn't be smart enough or interesting enough, then maybe I'll be pretty enough. And that's what I went to. So my whole life became about the physical part of me, because I didn't feel like there's anything else that was worth anything.
I noticed one of the taglines that you use is self-worth should not be measured in pounds. How did you come up with that?
I had written a poem a really long time ago. about my eating disorder. And I said I weighed my worth in numbers and I hated every pound. And that's how I feel that we a lot of times our love for ourselves is very conditional. I love myself when I lose 10 pounds, or I loved myself when I fit into that. And it's ridiculous to do. We don't do that with our kids. We don't do that with anybody else, but with ourselves, it's so conditional. And we do, a lot of us do weigh our self-worth. You talked at the beginning about that person that you heard speak and other people. And there's, I once, I wrote an article for a women's magazine about, it was about business, and I'm not very business-like, but it was about how the way we feel about ourselves, we take that everywhere. So you don't think, a lot of people think, oh, it's not such a big deal. Oh, it is a big deal, because if you're not feeling good in your skin, that's going to affect everything you do, from the connections that you make with people, from your business, from the stuff that you do at work. It's a very big deal to feel comfortable in your skin. It's kind of like if you're wearing an outfit that's way too small. You're not going to feel comfortable, and people are going to tell. It's the same thing if your skin doesn't feel right.
Well, you had this journey. It ended up in some self-destructive behaviors, ended up in a dysfunctional marriage, and then you decided to write about it. That's, I think, very commendable, because you have one of those true life lessons that people should learn from. And it's such an interesting one that it's, there's a lot of different ways that people write books, and some of them, okay, sounds interesting. I might get a little bit out of it. But you have one that commands attention because of some of the visions that we have when we see and hear certain words. We have keywords we have in there. So you have the good stripper, obviously that catches a lot of attention. Soccer mom is another one. And so we have these visions of what these things are and what it could possibly be. But you came through this thing from a disease that incapacitated you for a long time, and probably, I'm not going to say PTSD, but it's probably as close as you're going to get for self-imposed PTSD, because sometimes those things, it's not what happens outside, it's what we hold on to. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in a couple hours on another show that I'm doing with dealing with stress. But when you have something that your life is focused in front of you, that you may not even get out of the bed in next week, that can be pretty traumatic. And I can understand that term, traumatic overload. Personally, I've never heard the term before, so to me that was pretty interesting. I could go look that one up and find out more about it. But how did you actually? Was this mind over matter that got you out of bed, or did somebody help you, or how did you actually get that wherewithal to say, okay, I'm going to get through this thing?
Well, see, that's the thing. Well, that's not what happened. See, I would love to say that my story was good, then bad, then good. The end, but that wasn't it. It was good, then bad, then good, then bad, then good, then bad, then worse, then better. That's my story. I've fallen and gotten up so many times. So the trajectory was kind of all over the place. And I think, you say, how did you get out of bed? The truth is, I didn't have a chance to stay in bed, because a lot of the trauma came after I was a mom, and you don't get a chance to break down, really. I paused at one point when I had to have part of my liver removed for something completely different. That's why I had to stop, and that kind of knocked me out for a bit. But I didn't have that chance, which I think is also the overload, right? I always say I'd love to be able to press pause on life sometimes and just catch my breath. I think we all would like that. We don't get that opportunity. We have responsibilities, and I think that's why I crumbled so much, because I didn't have a chance to just heal. So what made me, well, there was a few things. When I was in the life, let's say, and living a double life as like soccer mom and sort of town vixen, as I say, I realized I was hurting other people. I didn't want to, but there were other people that were getting hurt, kind of collateral damage. That I couldn't handle. I was okay to hurt myself, but not other people. So that took me out of that life, let's say. I became a body image expert. I was doing tons of stuff with that, which was fantastic. But I had so much guilt and shame over what I had done. I hadn't processed that. I wasn't about truth then. I was about, oh my God, keeping these secrets hidden, deeply hidden. I always say I wrapped my secrets in fear and hid them away. I didn't want my kids to find out about my past. I didn't want anyone I worked with to find out about. I didn't want anyone. So that knocked me down again, because again, that feeling of I'm not worth good things. I'm not worth accolades. I'm not worthy of anything. So it was, I think, you know what it was? I think I say this in the book too. It was a chance meeting with someone at the grocery store. I was in a very bad place. I thought everyone would be better off without me. My kids were teenagers, and I thought I'm worth nothing. They need somebody better than me. And I had this meeting with someone at the grocery store who was working there, and she said something about how I'm this bright light all the time. And I'm like, who is she? What? Who is she? Because I was going to go home and cry and then fix myself and pick up my kids from school. She saw something in me that I thought was long gone. And I'm like, am I still in there? I think someone is seeing something that that's when I kind of thought, wait, maybe I'm not done yet. Maybe there's something left in me, like some spark. And that's when I decided to make a change. And it didn't happen right away, but the wheels started turning. And that's when I decided eventually to leave my marriage and sort of just start to appreciate myself, start to understand myself, and most importantly, forgive myself. And I say in my book, I dedicate it to anyone who's struggling to forgive themselves for the mistakes they made when they were just trying to survive. We're doing the best we can, and that's what I did.
How old were your kids when you were in the hospital laid up for a couple of months?
Oh, that was way before. So actually, when I got sick, it was back in 2000, and my younger son wasn't born yet. My older son was 16 months old, and I was pregnant with another little boy that I lost while I was in the hospital.
Okay, so therapeutic or traumatic overload was all around, it did inside you and outside you. You didn't have
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
I
Hmm.
can see where that could add a
I have
little.
the emotional scars, but I've also got some physical scars from multiple surgeries, and yeah, it's it's so I'm in pretty good shape now. I teach fitness classes, and people say, "Oh, you're so fit." And I'm like, "Oh, this body has been to hell and back. Let me tell you, several times."
Uh, but the struggles you came through became the essence of your book in recognizing what they are. Because you said, I think in one of the things I read, it was your ability to regain control of your destiny was part of your process. And so as you're going down this process of what trying to recognize what is what, there's a lot there. And incrementally things happen and some more things happen, and all of a sudden you start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. But we're going to have a break here in about a minute and a half or so, TV break, commercial. And I want to come back and talk about truth, because that was one of the things backstage you said, hey, I really want to make sure we covered this topic. So we're going to get into truth in a brief moment or two. And then I want to talk about your book, The Good Stripper. But more importantly, I want to talk about your other one, the Body Image Survival Guide for Parents, because I think that's a major one, because you talk about self-confidence for kids.
Mhm.
And I think that's going to be a major life lesson for our audience. So with that, why don't we go ahead and start our commercial coming up here just about a minute early, get that part over with, because I think it's a good breaking point right now. And then we'll come back and let's talk about truth in our lives, and then continue on down the road.
Perfect.
What if one simple skill could change the way you connect with the world? What if listening could open doors to deeper relationships, stronger businesses, and a better you? Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the Listening Mentor, brings you USA Global TV and Radio, a space where voices are heard, ideas are shared, and global communities thrive. Through the elevated listeners' courses and books, you'll master the power of listening, set boundaries with confidence, and transform conversations into opportunities. Join us. Listen, learn, elevate. Whether you're a leader, a coach, a business owner, or someone seeking stronger connections, your journey starts today. Subscribe, learn, and transform today.
Hi, Rhoda Laughlin here. Welcome back to the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Marci Warhaft is our guest today, author of a couple of books, advocate on body image, self-esteem, particularly for children. And so, Marci, please join me back and let's go ahead down the road of truth. That was one of the ones that you wanted to make sure we had ample time today to talk about it. So let's talk about truth.
Truth is scary for a lot of people. I think it's scary to share it. I think it's scary to hear it. And I think it's something we talk, everyone says, you want honesty and you want to be truthful, but it's a lot harder than people think. And I know for somebody who lived with secrets for 2 decades, I understand that. Oh my God, do I understand that? I mean, I would meet somebody new and be like, when do I tell them? Do I have to tell them? How much do I have to tell them about myself? And even the things I didn't, even not even talking about my mistakes, even my losses, that's tough. Whenever somebody says to me, oh, do you have a big family? And I'm like, okay, here we go. I got to tell them all my family that died young. Like, it's just, it's hard to share so much honesty when it's not pretty, you know? And social media would tell us that honesty is the best thing and there's no judgment and just be you. But really, they're saying just be you as long as you're just like me. And just be you to the point that it's comfortable for me. Don't make me uncomfortable. And what I found was when I released my book, I decided I was turning 50 and I was just going to share it. It was killing me keeping it inside. And I was done with that. And I shared it. I shared it all. Like I could have held back. I could have held back the stuff that made me look bad. But what's the point of that? And that's not very liberating. And somebody asked me once, did you ever think about writing it under a pseudonym? An alias. And I'm like, well, then where's the honesty in that? Like, no, then it means I'm still hiding something. It means I'm still feeling shame. And I was done feeling shame. I say all the time that I used to berate myself and criticize myself for how I survived. And now I'm proud of myself for the fact that I survived. And sometimes survival is messy and dirty and not pretty. And that's okay as long as you get to the other side. Trying to keep this image up all the time is what keeps us from healing. So what I found was I was so afraid that I would share my truth, tell the truth of my stories, and that people would shun me. And what I realized was I was the one doing that to myself. I wasn't letting myself be me because I was criticizing myself. Once I said, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm ready to take whatever happens, and I let it out and I waited for the world to end. And it didn't at all. It got bigger because people actually reached out to me because even though the details of my story are unique, the themes are resonate with everyone. Everyone's been through some sort of loss or self-worth issues and self-esteem issues or relationship issues or parenthood issues, or we've all been through that. And I think there's a power in being honest because once you are honest, other people can feel less alone. Because I think the most isolating thing is when you've done stuff or you have stuff in your past that's difficult or in your life that's difficult, you feel like you're the only one. When you hear someone else say it, you go, oh, wait, what? That's not, someone else, and then someone else. Then you feel like, okay, so maybe that's not such a big deal. And you know how many people said to me, that's not such a big deal. Like people were fixated on so many different things that I thought they would be. So there's so much power in letting that go. It's the fear that was holding me back, not the truth. It was the fear around the truth that was holding me back.
It reminds me of that movie, A Few Good Men with Nicholson and Cruz. You can't handle the truth.
I thought of that too. You can't handle the truth. No, it's true. And you can't worry about that. You can't worry that your story, as long as you're hurting anybody, like directly, I can't worry how my story is going to make you feel. I've had people tell me they were reading my book and they had to put it down and deal with some stuff from their past before they can pick it up again. And it's not a bad thing. It's just, it will impact you as life does. And that's okay. We're skirting around it. It doesn't get us through it. That whole thing, you got to go through it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Sometimes you go through things. I got an invitation to Vietnam early in my life, and I have friends that I've met along the way, and there's quite a few don't want to talk about it. Absolutely. Just no way. It's just not even though you've been there with them, whatever, it's not a topic for discussion. And they will just flat shut it down. Good, bad, or indifferent, doesn't matter. It's just not a topic for discussion. Mm-hmm. Now, is that good mentally, psychologically, emotionally? I have no idea. That's not my expertise. but they realize that's a door they don't want to open again for whatever reason. And these things happen today. I mean, you got Ukraine, you got Gaza, you got all sorts of things. I remember first time I also got an invitation to Bosnia, and I went down to Sarajevo. I went across the river to Republic Srpska, and it looked just like Berlin after World War II. And I'm looking at things on Gaza there, and it's just, absolute destruction. And you live through that, whether you live through that as a kid, you live through that as a soldier, as a grandmother. I mean, there are things that absolutely destroy ourselves mentally, emotionally, physically. And I think you're right to release that, to get it out into the open, because people have shared experiences and they're not releasing it. And here, somebody like you, Marci, well, this is the truth. This really happened. I think it's it's a way to allow liberation to occur for other people who are not purposely hiding it. I don't even think they realize they're hiding it.
And sometimes it is that fear that they want to, but they can't. I mean, I had a lot of people, I still do have a lot of people who will message me through social media and share secrets with me that they can't share yet. And they do that because they know instinctively that they can trust me, that I'm not going to be judgmental or share their information with anyone. But there are things that they want to get off their chest and burden themselves of. And they don't feel that there's a safe place where they can do that yet. And then just sharing it with one person, that's enough for now. Just hearing that they're not bad, hearing that they're not alone. It's so powerful. But that's why I think, I knew a poet once, and he said, it was a great quote about how somebody said to him, "How are you so open about your trauma?" And he's like, "It's the trauma." And I totally agree. I think that I'm honest because of my healing, but also because of the trauma. The trauma has shown me that I can kind of handle a lot. And what I've been through is the hard stuff, getting through my illnesses, getting through my losses, getting through a lot of the stuff I went through. That was the hard part. I can handle being judged for how I survived it, and there's something that I've become obsessed with the truth. I have no filter and not about other people, about hurting other people with the truth. I mean, with my story, with myself. I mean, what you see is what you get. And it isn't perfect. It's quite flawed in a lot of ways. But oh my God, how freeing is that to be able to say, I've messed up, but not only have I messed up, I'm still messing up, and I'm going to mess up. And it really is freeing, because it's like, don't expect perfection from me, because you're not going to get it, and I will do things that aren't great. And that's life. I think we're so, it's all fear. We're so fear driven.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have that because I've already been through some. I had somebody say to me once that I'm the most fearless person they know, and it terrifies them. And it's not that I'm fearless. I'm just kind of like, okay, like, so whatever, it might be hard, but I'll get through it. There's something to that is quite liberating.
How long did it take you to write the book? The Good
7
Stripper?
months.
Okay, wow.
7 or 8
That's
months.
pretty
It was
fast.
quick. I needed to get it out, and I think that's all I did. I just stayed in my basement and wrote. And there were times there were certain chapters that were so tough that I didn't want to live in them for more than a day. So I would write through the night and into the morning, because they were too hard, and I didn't want to spend too much time with them.
How did you do the editing?
Well, I was introduced to a publisher, and I had sent just a little bit of my story and my concept, and he liked it. He thought it was an interesting story, and that I expressed it well. And we stayed in touch, and I put together a 46-page book proposal with some sample chapters and a whole bunch of stuff, and he liked it and asked for the manuscript, and I wrote the manuscript and I sent it, and then got the book deal. I got very lucky.
Okay, so you wrote the book, got it edited, it's ready to go. So a couple of things that I always ask people: cover art. If we can have our production engineer pull back up the cover
That's an
on
interesting story. Yeah.
The Good Stripper. You have the pole there, but you also have a baby stroller. pretty ingenious. How did you come up with that?
Well, it wasn't going to be. It's an interesting thing. It actually was. It was a different cover. It was a different cover that was very different. It was illustrated. It was almost cute. It was this like drawn picture of. It was supposed to be two versions of me. So it was a drawing of a woman looked like a soccer ball, and then a woman who looked like she could be a stripper, kind of thing, facing each other. And what happened was, Chapters here, so the biggest bookstore in Canada, we were going to print like that weekend, and they hated it. They said we don't like it. They told my publisher we don't like the cover. It wasn't something that they're like, we won't take it. We won't sell it if you don't change it. So we had about 2 days to come up with something else. And so the designer with my publisher came up with different ideas and showed me, and I almost like a stripper boot, and I just nothing was resonating with. And then we came up with this, and I remember it was a little darker at first, so I wanted it brighter, and then it was just like this. They were so right, the bookstore, because this was definitely the best thing, because this was my life in a way. I mean, my kids were a little older than that, but it's the good stripper, a soccer mom's memoir. So it was that sort of juxtaposition of the both sides of my life at that time.
Okay, let's jump into your second book real quickly, The Body Image Survival Guide for Parents. How long did it take you to write that one?
That one was different. It was I wrote that was first. I wrote that a very long time ago, and that was kind of a compilation of different blogs. I had been writing blogs for the Huffington Post on body image, and I had a program called Fit versus Fiction that I took to schools, where it was an interactive workshop on body image and self-esteem. I started with grade 4 and then was asked to go as young as grade 1. And I would speak with grade 1 through high school. And I would always have parents coming to me with the same questions over and over. And I thought, okay, I should just put this in one place where they could have it. And that's what it is. I call it a survival guide because it's something you could pick up and put down. There are what I call sort of like the snappy answers to quick questions. You know, when people my kid just said that, I don't know what to do. And they look in the book. I have games and tips and tools to help kids at every age develop healthy body image and self-esteem. And so it was really just something quick and easy that parents can go to, because I know my mother had to watch me deal with my really intense body image self-esteem issues. And there's nothing worse than seeing your child in pain, physically or emotionally, and feel powerless. And I just didn't want parents to feel powerless. And so I was giving them a little bit of a lifeline for that.
Okay, so you wrote your books. When did you start marketing your books? Because a lot of us wait till the book is done and then we start marketing.
Well, the first one, really, I didn't do much marketing. It was, I don't think really did much. It was, I had one benefit where I donated proceeds to an eating disorder clinic here. And, but it was really more kind of word of mouth with that one. And then, but then I did do a lot of TV, and because nobody at the time, that's the funny thing. When I started speaking about eating disorders, especially, nobody was talking about it. This was before social media when I started talking about it. And it wasn't pretty. It wasn't glamorous. So no one wanted to talk about it. But me, I wasn't ready to talk about my double life yet, but that part I could. So I was always talking about it. So I became the go-to person that the news would call, or the radio stations would call, or the newspapers would call when there was a story about kids being weighed at school or something to do with body image and weight. I was the go-to because I was the only one who would talk about it. So that kind of, I was the author who'd written the book. So that sort of promoted that. As far as the Good Stripper goes, I just started it when the book came out because nobody knew I'd written it until about a week before it came out. It's a big deal to tell people I used to strip, even though it was only for a brief part of my life. But still, the whole story was kind of shocking for a lot of people. But I think it was during COVID, so it was very tricky because I couldn't do book signings. I couldn't do any kind of book launch. So it was all through social media. And then through podcasts, and then that kind of just spread through that, and book clubs, and writing different articles for different magazines and newspapers, and that. So it just kind of happened that way because I was limited.
Okay, you are a host of a podcast, How to Ruin Your Own Reputation. Is that still ongoing?
No, I need to find a new producer. I had issues with my producer, and I'm not technical at all, but it was fantastic. Honestly, it was so much fun. And still have people messaging me wanting to be on, because it was that came from my book. That came from me deciding that we need to listen to people's stories. And I had on guests whose lives were stigmatized and judged and misunderstood, and they were given sort of carte blanche to share their stories. And a lot of people would message me after and say, I was ready to really hate this person, but wow, I kind of related to some of what they said. And that's the whole point. It's like I said before, our the details of our lives are different, but a lot of the themes are the same. So I thought that was a great thing for us to learn. And I met some really interesting people.
Okay, is there a third book coming out anytime soon?
There could be. I don't know if I'd write a book, but I'm going to do something, because it doesn't end with me. It's like David Bowie said, I don't know where my life is going, but it won't be boring.
Will not be boring. That's absolutely true. We're getting toward the end of the show. How do people get your books? How do they get in touch with you if there's a speaking opportunity, or do you do speaking?
Yes, absolutely.
So let's tell the audience what they need to know.
Okay, very easy to reach me because all my social media handles are just my name, Marci Warhaft. So very easy to find. And I love hearing from people, especially when people have read my book. I love talking. And like I said, there's so many things between grief and body image and truth. There's so many things that I talk about. But so the book, the best place to get it is really from Amazon. You can order it. It's also an audiobook. But just on Amazon, just The Good Stripper, and Marci Warhaft is just, you find me, just punch that in, you'll find Instagram and even TikTok and Facebook and all of that. I'm not hard to find. That's good and bad, but yeah.
You mentioned audiobook. How did you get the voice for your book, The Good Stripper?
I did it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And I actually, my publisher doesn't do audiobooks, and I really wanted to do one. So a friend of mine, it's a little flawed, but so am I. But we just did it. And yeah, it had to be me, because it's I think with memoirs, it should be the person that it would have been weird to have somebody else read my story. I don't know. I mean, it's not that easy. Look, there were things, writing it is one thing, but as I was reading it, I'm like, oh, did I just say it? What was I thinking? So to say it was interesting.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine. Marci, you've been a fantastic guest today. I really and truly appreciate it. And let me go ahead and make sure that the audio audience knows Marci, M-A-R-C-I, Warhaft, W-A-R-H-A-F-T. That's W-A-R-H-A-F-T. The book, The Good Stripper, Soccer Mom's Memoir of Lies, Loss, and Lap Dances. And Marci's a body image expert and also an advocate for self-esteem, self-confidence for kids. So please reach out to her, buy her book. And Marci, I look forward to our next conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much, Red.
Take care. Bye now. Red Laughlin here. We're getting ready to wrap up the Corner Bookstore today. Marci has been our guest. My next show is called The Wise Ones. And I have another author coming up on that one. And her name is Elizabeth Splain, and she has a series of books, and very interesting evolution of how she ended up getting this particular character into the series. We'll talk about that at length. And then I have a series I do every week, do three shows back to back on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, the Corner Bookstore, The Wise Ones, and then I have a show I do myself called Talking Heads. And today my topic is stress. What would I do? I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. You look at stress, and there's basically four catecholamines, actually three catecholamines, but four processes, chemical processes that go on the body that we can have some level of control, but we need to know what they are and what to do. So I'll be talking about stress and what would I do. So with that being said, let's go ahead and wrap things up today on the Corner Bookstore for the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care. Bye now.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Steve Klein Art at steveklein.art.
My name is Steve Klein, born Manchester, England, 1953. My quest in my lifetime is to create artwork from my soul and the deepness within my wildest dreams and fantasies. In 2012, my heart stopped when I was given too much anesthetic for a minor knee operation, and this near-death experience took me to another multi-dimensional world, an out-of-body experience, and I was given the gift of being blessed by an overwhelming, burning passion to become, for the very first time in my life, an artist with an eternal, passionate desire to bring my art, which I've named multi-dimensional, subliminal, freeform art, to the world. As only 3% recover from what I experienced, and now in my golden years want to release my cosmic, vital energy through my art to allow people to be a part of my cosmic dance.
To learn more, email roccogoodwine@gmail.com. For VIP pricing, mention USA Global TV and Radio.
In a world full of noise, misunderstandings, and interruptions, master the art of listening with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor of USA Global TV and Radio and the Amazon #1 best-selling author of Mastering the Power of Elevated Listening. Elevate your listening. Elevate your life. Join a global learning experience in person or via Zoom. Reserve your spot today. usaglobaltv.com/book-your-session or drjacqueline.thinkific.com. Join Dr. Kerbeck's listening courses or hire her to unlock deeper connections and authentic conversations. Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honored to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.